Welcome to the podcast. I am back this week. So if you've been listening to the podcast in the last few weeks, you might know that I've had laryngitis. I was barely able to speak for probably about 10 or 12 days. And the podcast became a family affair. My two oldest sons, who are 11 and 8, introduced the podcast the last couple of weeks. They had so much fun doing it, and I had a blast helping them behind the scenes to record their introductions, and they also recorded a summary at the end of each of those last two episodes. And even though I had laryngitis, it's been a blast. So if you haven't yet watched those episodes, go check them out. They're really great content, but also really fun to hear elementary age kids be able to speak like that. I'm so proud of them. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about turning down opportunities. This has been on my mind lately because I've been having different opportunities come my way that have been really difficult decisions to make for my business and the direction of my business, and what makes sense to accept as an opportunity and what doesn't. And so from a personal perspective, I'll share with you a little bit more about what the specific example was that I'm thinking of here in a moment. But it's also been something that's been on the mind of my clients a lot. Opportunities coming to them, new potential clients, speaking opportunities, partnering opportunities, teaming opportunities, potential, hiring of new employees for those who have larger businesses. So there's so many opportunities coming our way, both myself and for clients, and I'm guessing that may be happening for you as well. And so today I want to walk you through a process that I like to use both for myself and for my clients to really help you figure out whether or not you're going to turn down an opportunity. And if you are, how to do that without burning a bridge or feeling regret. So that's what I want to share with you today, is that formula. And hopefully this will help you to just make some decisions that might be a little bit challenging in your business. Number one, those things that really stand out and that this is a challenging decision. And there are other times where you might just be saying yes on autopilot and not realizing that it's going to be in your own best interest, in the business, best interest of your business, to turn something down. And so that's another really important application of what I'm going to share with you today. So with that, I'll just share with you a little bit about one of the opportunities that came my way that really was the inspiration for today's episode. And that is, I had a founder of a SaaS company, software startup company, come to me, and they wanted me to talk with them about potentially joining as a founder and joining that company as a founder, and basically building out the entire the coaching division. And so there was a lot of, really uniqueness in this particular opportunity. As you may know, I come from a software background. I come from a startup background. I loved the time that I spent building a company from the ground up. I loved the time that I spent, deciding and steering the direction of the software. And of course, I love coaching more than anything. So it's kind of a really interesting merger of all three of those things. And at first it felt very tempting. And it felt in some ways that the universe was coming to me saying, you look at this amazing opportunity. It's really something that is uniquely, suited for your talents and passions. And so my initial inclination was one of a little bit of skepticism, a little bit of excitement, and a lot of thought process around how could I make this work. And as the days went by, where I was really, trying to make a decision and kind of going through my own process that I'll share with you here in a minute, I started to realize that this idea or this thought or this vision that I have about myself, that is, I can make something work or I can figure it out, was starting to really be the main driver of this decision. And quite frankly, even though those things sound really good, when you have a self-concept like you might, that I can figure anything out, I can make anything work, I'm someone who makes things, figures things out and can make something successful no matter what it is. When you have that kind of self-concept, sometimes it backfires. You start making things work that you don't necessarily, of course you can make it work, but it doesn't necessarily mean you want to be doing it, right? And so that really, that finally hit me, that as I was going through this decision-making process, most of my thoughts and considerations around this decision were around things like around the kind of themes around, I know I can figure this out and make it work, which I could have. By the way, I said no to this particular opportunity. And I'll tell you why as we work through this framework that I'm going to share with you today about deciding about whether or not you're going to take an opportunity and turning one down. So as I was going through that thought process, that's really what hit me, is I'm trying to make this work versus this is something that really makes sense for the direction of my business. This is something that really makes sense based on what feels the most aligned to me for my passions and where I want to be spending my time. And so it was so important to see that distinction. And was one of the primary reasons why I decided to say no to this particular opportunity, which most people would say, that was you should have taken that. It's so many great things about it. And there really were so many great things about it. But for me, as I really dove in and peeled back the onion, which I will teach you how to do today, it made so much sense that no was the resounding answer. And so for you, I want to help you apply this today. You might be in a situation like my consulting business consulting business owner clients are, where you might have a opportunity coming to you. You might have an engagement opportunity coming to you, and you're trying to decide whether or not to take it. Maybe it's a non-ideal client, but it's, that the bird in the hand, and trying to decide whether or not to go forward with it, even though your intuition is telling you it might not be a great idea. Or you might be having corporate roles approaching you, and you're trying to decide, this looks amazing. Do I want to go back to corporate, or do I want to continue forward with my business? Or you might be in the situation where you're trying to figure out what kind of, subcontractors to agree to move forward with, or partnering opportunities coming to you. Maybe you have an opportunistic resource that you're trying to decide whether or not to hire. Whatever it is for you that you might be trying to decide what kind of opportunity you might be wanting, that might be kind of on the fence about right now, and you're trying to decide what to do, I'm going to share with you the framework so you can decide if you're going to say yes or not to the opportunity, yes or no to the opportunity, and then what to do if you've decided it's a no, how to turn down that opportunity. And like I said a moment ago, think about if none of those things are kind of in the immediate pipeline for you in terms of decisions you need to make as a business owner, if none of those examples are really in your immediate future of having to decide, I would just really challenge you to say, am I really taking in opportunities that come my way, whether it's client engagement opportunities or partnering opportunities or resourcing opportunities, teaming opportunities? Am I really making a decision, an intentional decision, a purposeful decision? Or am I defaulting to I'm going to say yes and figure it out? So wherever you're at in this journey, I know one of these or if not more, apply to you. And so let's talk through this framework I'm going to share with you so that you can figure out and make your own decision for whatever's on your plates, and then decide how you're going to move forward. And then if you're turning down an opportunity, how to do that without burning a bridge, feeling guilty. Okay, so that's what our topic is today. We're going to cover 3 specific things. I'm going to share with you the 5 questions that you're going to want to ask yourself so you can decide if you're going to turn down an opportunity or not. And then I'll give you a couple of case study examples so you can see how those questions, how that framework works in practice. And then finally, if you decide to say no, which hopefully you're saying no to something, if you're saying no, yes to everything, that's a recipe for burning out and diluting yourself. So when you get to the spot where you decide it's a no, I'll help you with messaging around that and how to do it, like I said, without burning a bridge or feeling regretful. So with that, let's dive into that. First, I'll share with you the framework, the 5 questions you're going to want to ask yourself, and kind of these tests to figure out if you're going to say yes and like your reasons for saying yes, or if you're going to say no and like your reasons for saying no. So here are those 5 tests that you're going to want to put in place. And we'll put these in the show notes so that you have them and don't have to furiously take notes here. Just listen and soak this in. So the first question you're going to ask yourself, or the first kind of a category of questions you're going to want to ask yourself, is to test the opportunity that you're considering against your business model. So ask yourself, is this opportunity aligned with my business plan or not? So I'll give you an example. When I was deciding whether or not to, come on to that software company and build their coaching arm, I looked at it and said, this is not the business plan that I've created. I have created a business of one on purpose. And of course, I have support staff and that kind of thing. But I'm a business of one person delivering. I love working with my clients one-on-one. I'm not one of those coaches with a big group or, masses of people on purpose. And so, no, this is not aligned to my business model or my business plan. So for you, ask yourself when you're thinking about this particular opportunity, and I'll share with you a couple of case studies here in a moment for you to use as an example. But ask yourself, is this opportunity really aligned to my business model? Is this really aligned to the business plan that I've created that gets me to building out and advancing that business model? Also ask yourself, if this was for someone else's business, what would you recommend? When you take yourself out of the equation, it often helps so much. If this was for someone else's business and you were just looking at this decision on paper, what would you recommend to yourself? So that's the first of the 5-part framework, is to test the opportunity against your business model. And if you don't know what your business model is, or you don't have clarity around what your business plan is, then I would really recommend you reach out to me, because this is one of my zones of genius, is helping my clients, the independent consulting business owners like you, really get clear on what it is you want in your business and what you don't and how you're going to get it. Okay, so then the second part of this 5-part framework is to ask your future self. So put yourself in a zone, let's just say it's 5 years from now. Pick a time frame that doesn't feel so raw and in the moment. So let's just say 5 years from now, and you're a highly sought after consultant. You're exceeding your revenue goals and your profit goals. You have a lot of flexibility, a lot of space in your business and in your life. When you think about it from this decision you're trying to make from that perspective, would you say yes? And the reason why this can be such a helpful framework to implement is that it gets you out of the weeds in the day-to-day and the worrying about kind of the immediate needs that you might have. And it gets you into that frame of mind that is what I like to call that this is done frame of mind, where you don't have to wonder anymore if you're going to be successful. You already are. You don't have to wonder if you're going to be able to create a sustainable, predictable business. You already have. And so when you think about the decision that you need to make from that perspective, that you've created everything you thought you could and more, does that version of yourself say yes or no to this opportunity? And then the third part of the framework is to check in with how you're feeling. This is an emotion. You're looking for how does this, when you think about making, it's not about making the decision. When you think about the outcome of the decision, how do you feel? It's like a one-word emotion we're looking for. Do you feel pressured? Do you feel like, let's just say you were to go forward with this opportunity? Do you feel relieved? That's an indication that you had been feeling pressure to say yes, to get it off your plate and just move forward and figure it out. Or on the flip side, if you've decided, test these out, right? If I say yes, how am I going to feel? Like really put yourself into that frame of mind. I say yes, and then think about it 2 or 3 days later. How do I feel? Maybe relieved. That's a great indication that you were feeling pressured. Or let's say that you decided no, or testing out no. How do you think you're going to feel in a couple of days after having said no? Is it self-assured or calm or peaceful? Like really checking in with those feelings that are driving this process. Because at the end of the day, we do everything to either create an emotion or to avoid an emotion. And so that's why this is such an important part of the equation that most people don't realize or completely just skip over. So a lot of us don't want to feel most of the emotions. They're kind of brutal, some of them, right? So just really think about how are you feeling and testing this out if you were to say yes and if you were to say no and what that looks like, and trying to get yourself into that frame of mind. The fourth part of this framework, of the 5-part framework to decide yes or no, is truly being honest with yourself. I like to do this with journaling, right? I just sit down with my iPad and my Good Notes app, and I ask myself questions like some of the questions I've shared with you. Why would I do this? Why wouldn't I do this? What is that inner dialogue? This part of the framework is just being really honest with yourself. When I was making the decision that I shared with you about that startup company, I noticed when I went through this exercise, looking at my inner dialogue without judgment, there were a couple of things going on. There was people pleasing. I don't want to let this person down. They've been looking, and I truly think I had a really unique skill set that was hard for them to find. I don't want to let this person down. And the other inner dialogue that kept coming up is like, I was shared with that you a minute ago, right? I can figure this out. I can fit this in. I can make this work. Those are all people pleasing in some kind of a way. And in some ways abdicating, like, I'll just figure this out. Let this person decide for me, and I'm the one who can figure things out. So when you notice, another really good flag is I should, if you notice that in your inner dialogue, I should do this. That was another thing that came up for me, a little bit of, what if I say no and this company completely blows up? And I said no to this opportunity. That would be humiliating and full of regret. But again, is that a good reason to say yes to something? Absolutely. In my book, in this case, absolutely not. So just really being honest with yourself is that fourth part of the framework. Asking yourself, again, why would I say yes and why would I say no? And just be incredibly honest without judgment so that you know exactly what might be underlying the decision that you're trying to make. And then the fifth part of this 5-part framework, I love this. A lot of times it goes back to this make it work kind of situation that so many of us are in. I mean, that's what we do as consultants, right? We figure out how to make things work. So a lot of times we've already said yes in our mind and we're trying to figure out how to make it work. And then almost making it, talking ourselves out of it if we need to. And in this fifth part of the framework, I'm going to ask you to do the opposite. Make whatever the opportunity is that you are considering earn its spot. So that's the fifth part of this framework. Make it earn its spot. So rather than asking yourself, how can I make this work? How can I figure this out? Because you're a resourceful person. You ask yourself, what am I going to gain if this has to earn its spot? In order to earn its spot, what bar does it need to clear? In order to earn its spot, what does it need to be able to, what kind of return on investment would it need to demonstrate? In order to earn its spot, what other opportunities might it be taking the place of? And am I willing to lose those? Am I willing to give up those things to put this thing in its spot? And so asking yourself those kinds of questions can be very powerful. Again, where your default is, no, I'm not going to go forward with this opportunity. Let me make it earn its spot to decide whether or not I will, versus the default that most of us use, which is, I'm going to do that. My default is, yes, I should, and then try to talk myself out of it. And again, this can apply to anything. This can apply to an opportunity like I was describing to you, or a partnering opportunity, a teaming opportunity, and even an opportunity to take on a new client engagement. Even an opportunity to take on an extension of an existing client. This 5-part framework is incredibly powerful for all of those types of decisions you're making as an independent consulting business owner. So that is the 5-part framework. Again, we'll put these in the show notes so you have them. But this is going to be the framework that will help you to decide, is it a yes? Is it a hell yes? I love that. Is it a hell yes? I'm doing this. Otherwise, it's a no. Okay, so let me give you I promised you a couple of examples. The first is that new, and my voice is so scratchy. I'm still not fully healed from this laryngitis. So I appreciate you sticking with me. Okay, so let's test this out. A case study here, or an example, and a simple one that most of us are, it comes across our desk frequently, and that's a new client opportunity. So an example here is I had a client, she had a new client, a new consulting client reach out to her and ask if she had availability and if she wanted to discuss the potential to come and work, work on a particular project for the organization. And so the first thing that we did is really test this. So she was on the fence about this. There was something kind of nagging. I'm not sure about this. And I'm not sure why I kind of am hesitating. And so we went through this process that I described to you a moment ago, the 5-part framework. The first thing that we talked through is, let's test this against your business model. Is this the type of work you want to be doing? This particular client, the answer was, you know what, I've been doing some of this work in the past and even right now, but I know for sure I want my business model to move more into advisory and more into strategy and less into delivery. And this particular project was probably 90% delivery and 10% strategy. So the first part of this process that we work through, even though, for most of us, a new client calls, a new client reaches out, like, how do I fit this in and generate revenue? So important to take a step back and say, is this the right decision? So the first question, again, was around testing that opportunity, that new client opportunity against the business model. And we started to see red flags. We started to see red flags because we had so much clarity on where she wanted her business to go in the next 6 to 9 months. And that this particular project, I think it was a year long or 9 to 12 month project, was not fitting within that business vision that she had established and had been working on. So that was the first answer she got. Then the second answer was ask your future self. Second part of the framework, ask your future self. As we talk through that helped her so much to lift out of kind of the immediate enticement of revenue, right? The immediate enticement of line of sight into revenue, into visibility around what cash flow would be coming in for the next 9 to 12 months, and a feeling of certainty and predictability. So that's the immediate, right? But when we went to go ask her future self, that version of her in 3 years that has a really solid $1 million strategy and advisory type of a practice, and she's looking at the question about whether she should be using up a good, almost a year of her time on this particular type of engagement that would really take up a good chunk of her capacity. That particular part of the framework raised so many red flags and gave her an answer of this, I should turn down this opportunity. And we checked in with how she was feeling, that third part of the framework. She was feeling rushed. She just wanted to get this decided and off her plate. And when we thought about how would she feel if she said yes, the answer was almost nauseous. Like, if I say yes, I don't feel excited or passionate or committed and devoted to this client work I just took on. I anticipate if I say yes to this, I'm going to feel nauseous because I'm going to realize that I just tied up my capacity for 9 to 12 months doing something that I've decided I no longer want to do. So that was the third part of this was a no. And then the fourth part, be honest with yourself. What's that internal dialogue? Again, it was around things like, I know I can figure this out. I know I can take this on and probably have another couple of clients, and kind of, it might delay me a little bit into getting into the kind of client mix that I want, but I know I can make it work. Like, all of those kinds of things were the dialogue, basically trying to justify it versus the type of dialogue that's indicating that this is a really solid opportunity that makes sense to pursue. And then the fifth bucket, which was kind of the nail in the coffin in this particular example, make it earn its spot. This requires some belief and some courage that there are more clients out there, that you don't have to settle. And she didn't have to settle and say yes for the comfort of that immediate at the expense of what it was she wanted to build in her business. So ultimately, for this particular example, this new client opportunity, the answer was no for this client. Sometimes the answer might be yes, but it's so important to use this kind of framework to get really honest with yourself. Okay, another quick example, and then I'll tell you how to say no. It's great. It's interesting how many times I get this question. Okay, well, I've decided no, but now what do I do? How do I actually say it? So I'll share with you that at the end also. Okay, so the second case study or example that I wanted to share with you is one of teaming, a teaming example. I had a client who someone reached out to him and said, I'm interested in teaming together. If you bring in work, I'll refer if you bring, now I'm getting my directions confused. If you bring in work, then you might consider bringing, me in. And if I get work, I might consider bringing you in. Just making that kind of loose. It's not a partnership. It's not anything very formal, but it is a loose kind of, a loose business development type arrangements. And so we did the same kind of thing. In this particular case, the teaming opportunity that came to my clients that he was considering the person has a really good reputation in the industry. The person has a very strong network. The person has a lot going for them. But there's also some misalignment in terms of their style and in terms of the way they do business and in terms of even the types of clients and the engagements that they gravitate toward. And so that's why when my client brought this to his coaching call, that's why this was, a consideration of, should I do this or should I not? Should I turn down this opportunity? Also, what happens if I turn down this opportunity? This person is so well connected. Are they somehow going to damage my relationship, my reputation in this industry? I hear that often too. And that's what this client was really struggling with. And so we went through the same process again. We tested out the opportunity against his business model. And we said, you know what? And this is a pretty low, he could just say yes, right? And then when new opportunities came, he could just turn them down. That could have been the easy out for him. But as we went through this line by line by line, those 5 parts of the framework, it became very clear that the type of client work that potential teaming individual would bring in is not necessarily the type of work he would want to be aligned to. So it could potentially damage him even more for all the opportunities coming in and then him having to say no every single time or say yes and really violate, some of his own business policies and direction. So that's where the testing against the business model came into play. When we asked his future self, what would he do? His answer again was a no, because he, again, having that line of sight that you're successful, that you've got everything ironed, dialed in the next several years, and putting yourself into that headspace, and then it allows you to free up so much of the kind of immediate worries that you might, and stressors that you might be having. And that's what happened for him. He also, checked in with how he was feeling, and it felt the decision part of the feeling was very pressured, was very obligated. And when we thought about if he made the decision to say yes to this teaming opportunity, how would he feel? And it would be the same. I feel obligated whenever this person brings me a particular, specific engagement. I'm going to feel, I know I will feel obligated to try to figure it out. And that's not where I want to be in my business model, is what he arrived at, his conclusion. So he was really, bringing us into the 4th part of the model of this framework, being honest with himself. It was so much more about the decision for him was, should I say yes and create that initial relief for myself and basically kick the can down the road, because I don't have to say yes. I'm just saying, yes, let's loosely work together when opportunities come in, versus saying no now and not having to have that decision fatigue and the decision overhead with every opportunity that comes his way. And quite frankly, the other component to this too is then he would feel obligated on the flip side of when opportunities were coming to him, my clients. Well, I better go talk about this with, John Doe, the teaming person, because I feel like I'm obligated to. It created so much obligation. And really, it was driven off of fear of risking his reputation, fear of this person sullying his name, and not out of anything that would drive his business forward. And so therefore it didn't earn its spot. The answer was a no. So that hopefully that gives you a couple of really tangible examples that you might relate to, whether it's deciding if you're going to bring on a new, work with a new client, extend a client, or whether you're going to agree to some kind of a teaming or partnership type of a relationship. And of course, any other type of opportunity you're trying to decide to move forward or not. Hopefully those two examples give you some really tangible ideas to move forward with for you as you implement this framework. So then let's wrap up today with talking about saying no without regret, saying no without burning bridges. And I frequently, like I said earlier, I frequently get this question. Okay, we decided we're going to turn down this opportunity, but how do I tell the other person that it's a no? And honestly, as back to my example with the SaaS software opportunity that I was sharing with you, it wasn't that easy for me either. So we all struggle with this as humans, I think. But I want to share with you a couple of mental models that can be really powerful to help you get through that part of the process when you decide to turn down an opportunity. And the first thing is really knowing that you are a business owner. You're running a business. It happens to be a business of one. It happens to be, you for the most part, but it doesn't mean that it's personal. So that's the first thing I always like to remind you is if you were saying no, if you were back in your corporate role saying no, how would this look differently? And so oftentimes it just takes that kind of personal part out of it and makes it easier. And the other thing is you deciding you're going to turn down an opportunity doesn't necessarily mean you're shutting the door forever. In some cases, you want to be careful because you don't want to say, well, it's a no for now. And then somehow you have to revisit this thing every 90 days or whatever. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to shut the door on this forever. It just means you might decide in 3 years that it's something that is worth revisiting again. For your own mental mind, you don't even have to share that with the other person if you don't want to. So get yourself into the headspace that this is not personal. I am a business owner. I am making a decision and communicating that decision as a business owner, not as their next door neighbor, not as their college friend, none of that. Even if you do have those relationships, in this case, the context is you saying no as a business owner. And for yourself too. This is where the regret comes in. Decide for yourself, I've made the best decision with the information I have right now, and I choose not to feel regret or guilt, remorse. I'm choosing that because I made the best decision for me, using a very thorough framework with the information I have at this time. So the first part of this saying no is getting really clear and clean, as we say in coaching, in your mind. And then just be honest with them, right? This is not a fit for me right now. I'm not going to be able to give this the attention that it deserves. This is not a fit for me right now. It's not aligned to where the direction that I'm heading my business in. So being really honest about this is a no. This is a no, not personal. This is a no for me and my business. And then follow that up with some form of value for them. Maybe it's introducing them to another resource. Maybe it's you, providing them with some kind of now I'm drawing a blank, introducing them to someone else who might be able to fit the need that they're looking for, introducing them to some other group of people that might be able to fit the need that they're looking for, introducing them to some other form of a resource that might be something that just helps them move forward and along where they might not have otherwise. Because at the end of the day, if you've gone to all of this effort and investment to decide if it's a yes or a no, it's not something that you decided lightly, and you want to really be able to help that person no matter, what it is that they need to move forward with. So hopefully that helps. Just don't, it's not a personal situation, right? It's you as a business owner owning a decision that you've made at a point in time. You might have made a good decision, and in the future, it might prove that you wish you would have made another decision. But at the end of the day, really having your own back, that the decision that you made is one that was based off of this particular point in time, and you having gone through this framework very thoroughly. So that's what I have to share with you for today. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to go take that, if you haven't already, the Independent Consultants Business Predictability Assessment. It's a 26 questionnaire that will help you get really clear on what to do for your business to increase the predictability and help you to really force rank and prioritize where you want to focus next in your business to get to that place where you've got a predictable stream of income and a lot of flexibility and freedom for yourself. So with that, I will see you again next week. Take care.